You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
So before one of us is at spring training, or both of us, you'll be there next week in Florida. I will be there in 2 weeks in Arizona. And the rest of you, if you're not going down, you can live vicariously through us.
Well, we'll try to bring the ocean waves and the desert air, I guess, the dry desert air, however you're going to make that work with Fully Work.
We don't really have that in Arizona. It's more just like, although not this time around. This time around, if you follow anybody Cactus League related on social media, all they've been able to post about for the last couple of weeks is how cold it's been, which hopefully will not be the case by 2 weeks from now when I'm down there, because obviously it's extraordinarily important that I am comfortable. But you can't really emulate. There are no sounds to emulate. I guess I could do like a coyote howling. So
there you go. That's actually a better. My idea was like you just rubbing up against a cactus,
just screaming in pain.
Yeah,
bristles dragging across skin.
Or just that Looney Tunes version that just made it sound like it was like boing 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 boing.
Welcome into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast from MILB.com. Episode number 199 next week. Sam Dykstra will be in Florida for some Grapefruit League action. 2 weeks, I will be in Arizona for some Cactus League action, and we're going to start talking about a little bit of spring training stuff. But before we get to that, thanks for tuning in wherever you found us at MILB.com, on iTunes, on Google Play, elsewhere, wherever else you get podcasts. I don't think it's actually called iTunes for podcasts. I think it's Apple Podcasts, which I have tried to remind myself for like a year and a half. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about, people.
Yeah.
And so if you did find us via a subscription, we appreciate it. And if not, and you like the show, give us a subscription and a rating or a review, and it helps us out quite a bit. I'm not sure why, but they have always told me to say that. So I'm assuming it does something good. No, it does. So you should give us your best. And we'll be eternally appreciative of it. And with that, we'll dive into Three Strikes on this week's episode and kick it off talking about spring training. Sam is headed down to Florida. Well, first, Sam's headed to Mexico. Excuse us. But then he's headed to Florida. So, I guess we'll try to be as cool as Sam for the next few days. But take us through your next between now and when we talk to you again next week. What are all of your stops?
Yeah, so just to get that out of the way before people think I'm going down on business to Mexico, I'm going down for a friend's wedding. I am not going down to interview anybody about the new LMB, Liga Mexicana de Baseball agreement with Major League Baseball. Nothing like that. It's friend's wedding, then going to Tampa. Just to take you guys through my itinerary, I know there are people who love traveling to Florida, going all around. So if anybody is down in Florida during any of these dates at any of these camps, please shout me out. Obviously, my Twitter handle's at Sam Dykstra, MILB. My email address is also in there in my bio. Reach out. Let me know if you're there. Would love to meet up with somebody who's listened to the podcast, or just talk for a little bit, talk baseball, talk whatever you want. So my plan next week is Monday, March 11th. I'll be at Braves camp. The next day, Tuesday, March 12th, I'll be at the Blue Jays camp. I'm Vlad Jr. watch. Most certainly. March 13th, Wednesday, I will be at New York Yankees camp. The 14th, I will be at Tampa Bay Rays camp. That's a Thursday. And then on the 16th, which is Saturday, I'll be in Miami Marlins camp. 15th, day off travel to go from the Gulf Coast side to the Atlantic side. And then March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, I'll be in Washington Nationals camp. Some really cool stops along the way there. I'm really looking forward to Rays camp. I've actually never been to Tampa Bay Rays camp, and that's really exciting for a reason we will talk about later in the podcast. That's a really, really cool Rays group. Will be fun to touch base on that. Blue Jays camp is kind of interesting for anybody who's ever been to Dunedin, Florida for spring training. You probably know, the Major League Stadium the Major League Spring Training Stadium where the Dunedin Blue Jays play. That's its own complex. The minor leaguers play at a separate complex a couple miles away. So it's kind of interesting having a split time between those and seeing two different environments as opposed to some of these other places, like Miami Marlins camp, Washington Nationals camp, where everybody's kind of centralized in the same area. So it's going to be interesting by next week when I do go to Dunedin, who is still in Blue Jays Major League camp. Is Bo Bichette still going to be around, or is he going to be back at the minor league complex? How long are they going to keep Vlad Jr. around? I mean, there have been some comments by the front office saying they don't believe he's a major leaguer. Nobody really believes them in that, but that's what they have to say in order to send him down to AAA Buffalo eventually, to call him back up in late April, get that extra year free, or hold off free agency for an extra year. I would love to see Vlad play in the game I'm going to watch. I don't control that, but anybody who's ever seen him take batting practice from social media sites, from MLB sites, from wherever, from last year's performance in which he almost hit 400, Vlad Jr. BP is really something special. So I'm going to try to get some video of that, some of these other places. If there's anybody in these stops that you would like to see or like to hear from, reach out as well. We might try to get some video interviews on the site, some different things this year, which I think could be really cool. But yeah, looking at Nationals camp, they've got Carter Kieboom and Luis Garcia as middle infield guys, both of which are contributing as part of Grapefruit League play right now. Are they going to be sent down by the time I'm there? We'll have to see. Miami Marlins, our guest this week is Connor Scott, their first-round pick last year. It was interesting being in that camp last year when I was there because it was the start of a rebuild. A lot of those minor leaguers knew that they were the future. Lewis Brinson was still a prospect, was still considered a potential shining star. Things have kind of come off a little bit for him and for other prospects like Monte Harrison, Isan Diaz, Braxton Garrett. So what is the state of that system now? It'll be interesting to check in on that. And the New York Yankees, so much of that, as always, is reflected or is focused on the major league side. But even last year, Gleyber Torres was still a prospect. Miguel Andujar was still a prospect. So much of their focus now when it comes to the minor league system are teenagers, are young pitchers, especially. So how is that going to be reflected in what I'm able to see next week? We'll have to find out. But one of my favorite things about going into spring training is not expecting things. Don't go and say or think, oh, this is what I'm going to see. This is, it's just going to be a carryover from 2018. Spring training, the whole point of it is a sense of renewals, a sense of new things, guys working on new positions, working on new batting stances, whatever. So I'm looking forward to going and learning what I can from these camps and bringing it to you guys on the site and to the podcast as well. We'll have interviews here the next 2 weeks. So that's some of the stuff I'm looking forward to. What's a camp that you're looking forward to, Tyler? Because I know Arizona is kind of its own animal in that you can kind of go to multiple camps in one day in a way you can't in Florida, right?
Yeah, that is true. Every time we have these discussions, I'm always struck by how easy we have it on the Cactus League side because everything, like the longest commute between two camps in the Cactus League is pretty much like 45 minutes to an hour. Maybe with traffic, it's like at the absolute most like an hour and 20 minutes. But that's like the shortest drive in the Grapefruit League. And so I feel pretty good about that. When you're like, some places where they're sort of all centralized in the same location, there's really only one Cactus League setup where that isn't the case, and that's the San Francisco Giants. And even that, it's not too far apart. It's driving distance between Scottsdale Stadium and the minor league side for the Giants. But everybody else, it's literally like you walk out of the Major League spring training stadium and you just like walk across a pathway and you're generally at the backfield. So yeah, it's a little easier for us. My apologies, Sam. I think that the camps that I'm most, the location that I'm most interested in hitting this time around is Peoria, which is the spring training setup for the San Diego Padres and the Seattle Mariners. Both of those systems obviously just have a lot of intrigue right now. And with the Padres, that kind of goes without saying just how much talent is there. Similarly to what's going on the Blue Jay side and the Rays side and elsewhere, how many of those guys are going to be down in minor league camp? By the time I'm there in 2 weeks, it'll be more solidified than probably what you'll see being down there next week. But that is a system in which you just kind of feel like if you walk in and just started blindly spinning around, you would eventually smack a top 100 prospect since they are everywhere in that San Diego organization. So that'll obviously be one that kind of goes without saying will be fun to hit. On the other side with the Mariners, that organization has tried so many different things in recent years to get itself over the hump, get into the playoffs. The Mariners, if I am not mistaken, now have the longest postseason drought in major American sports, I believe. And now they're going the rebuild and the prospect route. They've got Justice Sheffield. They drafted Jared Kelenic. They've got Justin Dunn from a trade. Evan White is back this season with another year of experience under his belt, in which he actually got a little bit of time at AAA last year, but mostly at High A with Modesto, where he was fantastic. Kyle Lewis looks as though he's healthy, even though he only played 86 games last year. There are so many interesting prospects in that system right now. It may not be the most elite level organization out there in the Cactus League, but I think they have so many interesting pieces at the moment that I really like that Mariner system. But it really just, anywhere you go, there's an intriguing storyline, because even with systems that don't seem like they really have a whole lot, there are some interesting components. You know, with the San Francisco Giants, there's not a ton in that system, but they do have Joey Bart. With the Chicago Cubs, there's not a ton in that system, but they do have friend of the podcast now, Nico Horner, some of those guys, Miguel Amaya, the catching prospect there. So you can kind of go anywhere and discover somebody who has the ability to put themselves on the map this year. But those two Peoria teams, they're going to be a lot of fun to check out.
Yeah, no, I do get jealous that you can do that. Like Jupiter is the closest. Oh no, I guess Washington Nationals and Houston Astros, excuse me, at West Palm Beach, and the Cardinals and Marlins in Jupiter. It's similar. You can kind of do that, but yeah, I always get jealous of, you can just kind of fly into Phoenix, and you could see like 4 or 5 in a day, really, if you wanted to, right?
Yeah, and those are the only two shared facilities in the Grapefruit League, right?
Yes.
That's amazing to me, because there are. Well, now I'm going to be put on the spot, and I can't remember. But there are a bunch. Salt River Fields of Talking Stick, Peoria, Glendale, Goodyear, Surprise. There are a lot of shared facilities. I know that there's somebody listening somewhere in a car right now who's yelling out one that I've forgotten, undoubtedly. But, yeah, there's you can hit – if you really wanted to, you could probably hit 6 different camps in a day just by hitting, 3 or 4 spots where there are shared or one team that's close to the others. And yeah, you don't really get that in Florida. I'm sorry, buddy.
It's okay. I enjoy long road trips. So
yeah, that's true. I guess the big question is, are you going to swing through whatever junction? What's that town with the pies?
I was just going to say, for anybody who knows my love of Yeehaw Junction.
Yeehaw Junction.
Yes. When I write the next great American novel that is based exclusively at this one crossing of 2 roads in the middle of Florida, you guys will know the origin of it. I love Yeehaw Junction so much. I'm actually kind of thinking, like, on my day off, in which I'm going from Tampa to West Palm, that I am going to finally get lunch there. I've missed it the last couple of years, in which I'm trying to quickly get from one end of the state to the other. This year I have a day off to kind of do that and go to a beach. No, I want to get it.
No, I want to stop at the one building in Yeehaw Junction.
Yeah. It's book research. That's what it is.
Yeah, there you go. That's a smart thing. I think we need to adopt Yeehaw Junction the way like David Letterman used to have a home office for the top 10 list for the Late Show. I think Yeehaw Junction will be that's the show before the show home office from now on.
Yes, I love it.
During spring training. So yeah, if you're going to be in Florida, hit up Sam at Sam Dykstra MILB. You can find me on Twitter at Tyler Mon. I'll be in Arizona. I'll get there on the night of the 16th. The 17th, I'm just going to take a day to try to collect my brain from a bunch of other work stuff. And then starting on the 18th is when I'm really going to be hitting camps in earnest. So, yeah, reach out. Let me know if you're going to be there. I already got one email from a listener who was going to be down in Arizona. And we'll hopefully get a chance to cross paths and we can give each other taco recommendations and all that type of thing. There's a large portion of where I'm going to go in Arizona is oriented around like, well, is there an In-N-Out there or is there a taco place nearby? Like, Phoenix is such a good food city. It's you got to have your priorities pretty well ironed out. Yes, I understand I'm there to cover things, but I got to eat also.
Yeah.
You know. All right, strike two. As we get deeper into spring training, Sam, and we've discussed this from year to year on the podcast in various forms, but I think it's always important to clarify with people, what should fans actually be paying attention to in spring training? Sometimes you'll get into the spring, you'll take a look at a pitcher, his stuff is just awful and his numbers are terrible, but it turns out, well, he was working on adding a new pitch, or his delivery was being tweaked this spring, and he wasn't really focused on the results so much as just trying to get comfortable with stuff. That's kind of a microcosm of what a lot of springs look like for a lot of guys. So going into a spring training game, if you're looking at a prospect, if you're evaluating where a guy is in his development, how much do stats matter? Do stats matter? What should people pay attention to at spring training?
Yeah, so the thing about spring training is we are coming off the winter and we are coming off the off season, and both of those things, as much as you've heard us talk the past couple of weeks, they're a baseball desert, essentially. We don't have much new information to talk about other than maybe injuries or trades or those things. But in terms of on the field performance, after the Arizona Fall League and, minus some Winter League stuff, we don't have new things to talk about. So we pour so much into what we see in spring training games, or at least that's the natural feeling is, somebody goes 3 for 4. Obviously the swing changes they've made are working. This is a big deal. This is something we should pay attention to, and great things will happen because of this. The example I always come back to personally is, I believe it was 2013, I want to say. The Boston Red Sox had a very good outfield prospect at the time, in Jackie Bradley Jr., somebody who did not have that much minor league experience yet. But everybody knew he was a really, really good fielder in center field, and he had some good on-base skills in the minors. Not a great hitting prospect, but showed some promise at least in the lower levels. Entered spring and ended up winning a job with the team on opening day because of how good he did in the spring. Turned out, the more major league experience he got, the more he saw actual major league pitching instead of AA, AAA arms that are brought in later in the game. He kind of got figured out. So now we know Jackie Bradley Jr., Gold Glove winner, center fielder for the World Series champions. But you can't blow up that small sample of he did so great in the spring that obviously means he's major league ready. If somebody does really well in the spring, that's great. That's something we should carry into the season and start to think about, like, okay, now's the time for them to back it up. That's not necessarily how spots are won, by just spring numbers, at least in that type of bubble. If it's somebody like Pete Alonso, let's say, who I don't know if we mentioned this yet, now Pete Alonso, not Peter Alonso.
Pete. He is officially Pete.
Yes, officially Pete. Pete Alonso is in Mets camp right now trying to win a first base job. The Mets have said all the right things in terms of he's there to actually compete. He's not necessarily automatically going down to AAA Syracuse. We are hopeful he will win the job. Then, yeah, with every dinger Pete Alonso hits, that's him getting closer. But, to look at somebody like Fernando Tatis Jr., who hasn't had AAA experience yet and is doing a lot of really fun things this spring and saying, like, well, if he keeps this going, he's going to be on the opening day roster, right? Not quite. I mean, it's great that he's showing this, and it might bump up his timeline a little bit. It's going to take a lot for Fernando Tatis Jr. to win a shortstop job with the San Diego Padres, as exciting as a camp as that's going to be. So you're allowed to get excited. You're allowed to watch these guys and see what they're doing. If it's a pitcher, maybe see if they've added a third or fourth pitch, see if their velocity is ticked up a little bit. Although I also mentioned these are shorter stints and they are coming off fresh. So if they go from 96 to 98, don't pour all your eggs in the bucket just yet, but just take all of these with kind of grains of salt and look for the more interesting things, the things you weren't expecting, the leg kicks or subtle changes to the swing, stuff like that. Don't necessarily get all wrapped up, because I think as of today, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is flirting with the Mendoza line, and nobody thinks that means that he's not going to be a major league ready hitter later this month. He is a major league ready hitter. He just needs to get into the swing of things and go from there. So yeah, just find the things that you weren't expecting and explore those a little bit. That's something we're going to be doing in our prospect primers and with all our spring training coverage. But don't get lost too much in what happens in Grapefruit and Cactus League games.
So there you have it, the Bible itself from one Sam Dykstra. And strike three this week, Sam. A few weeks ago, we discussed the impact of the Manny Machado signing on the San Diego Padres organization. I'm not sure if people heard, Bryce Harper signed a contract with the Philadelphia Phillies last week. Not sure if that news wasn't really that loud on the baseball landscape. But Bryce Harper, now a member of the Philadelphia Phillies, a plucky young player who signed for a decent amount of money, and that will affect the way that Phil's system looks going forward, really for a very long stretch of time, because this is not one of those contracts that we've seen in recent years with, there's an opt-out after 4 or 5 years, and it's an 8-year contract in total. This is a 13-year deal with no opt-out with a full trade clause. So Bryce Harper, in effect, blocks 1/3 of the Phillies outfield from prospects for the next decade and a half almost. But what does this really do for the Phillies system right now? We know how loaded of an organization that has been for the last few seasons. How does this signing change things, or what does it do to impact that system?
Yeah, in that kind of sense, in a minor league sense, in a prospect standpoint, I don't think this has the same effect that the Machado trade happened or did, because the Padres, they had a strength in the infield, obviously. Machado was looking to maybe be a shortstop when he signed his next contract. He's willing to move over to third, basically to accommodate Fernando Tatis Jr. He's a realist. He knows what the situation is. He knows how good of a shortstop Tatis is. So at least Tatis gets to stay, and that's going to move over Luis Urias over to second base at some point. So there are a lot of moving parts. Hudson Potts, I think, is somebody I mentioned who was a third base prospect. I think he was getting work at second base this spring as well. So there are some moving parts involved there. When we look at the Phillies, Harper's going to move into right field. He's going to have that on lock for a while. Nothing huge there. They signed Andrew McCutchen this offseason as well. So they have 2 new outfielders, both of whom are of all-star quality or have been in the past. That'll affect things a little bit, but when you look at the state of the Philly system, yes, they have some notable outfielders, particularly former first overall pick Mickey Moniak and Adam Hazley, who was also a first rounder, and some other names in there, Jailin Ortiz, Simon Muzziotti. But are these top level prospects in the same way that Tatis, Urias, even Potts are? I wouldn't quite go in that direction. Mickey Moniak, it made some improvements over the second half last year, but still has a long way to go with the bat to be a quality major league starting outfielder to the point where we're talking about him really getting affected by Bryce Harper signing. He's also expected, if everything clicks, for him to be a center fielder. So Harper being in right isn't going to affect him in center. Hazley's a little bit more of a complicated case. He climbed up to Double-A Reading last year. They've started to play him all around the outfield. I think they would love for him to kind of stick as a center fielder, but they're a little bit more realistic with him about maybe having to move to a corner. If that happens, there's going to be a bigger onus on the bat. Maybe he eventually replaces Andrew McCutchen in left. But, this is one job that's taken away. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that right field is on lock in Philadelphia for the next 13 years. There's a full no trade clause in there. But, trades happen. Who knows what happens 5 years from now? Bryce Harper could get traded if he sees the Phillies going south, whatever. Maybe Adam Hazley's part of the team by then. We'll see. But, outfield can be a little bit different. It's a little bit easier to move out there than teaching, a shortstop how to play first base, something like that. And who knows what could happen to Odubel Herrera. Maybe eventually Moniak and Hazley play well enough that they knock him out of center field. Who knows? But neither of those guys really feature as a future right fielder. So I'm not going to say that Harper has taken a job from them. It's just that there's one fewer spot potentially they could be down the line. That doesn't affect the Phillies all that much right now. But neither of those guys are major league ready. Neither of those guys are top 100 guys. So they're not going to have to really force their way in there. Maybe now they're playing for a trade in a way that they weren't previously. But yeah, I just don't see this having as big an effect on the farm as Machado did for San Diego.
And that's 3 strikes for this week's episode of the show before the show. No Benjamin Hill coming up this week, but we do have the full final list of the top minor league systems in baseball, our farm system rankings concluding this week with the overall rankings from one Sam Dykstra. We're going to break that all down coming up next. Before we dive into the farm system rankings for this week, I do just want to give one shout out promo-wise. We got an email in from Charles Belfield who got in touch with the podcast at MILB.com, and sent us a link. The Rochester Red Wings, following in the footsteps of the Myrtle Beach Pelicans last year, they're going to do a night in which they don jerseys in American Sign Language script and will celebrate deaf culture. This will be April 28th. They'll wear ASL jerseys and caps, and a really cool initiative that got started last year across the minor leagues. The Pelicans really kind of put that thing on its feet, and now with other teams starting to take the initiative to get behind this as well. This is really cool. The Red Wings partnering with the Rochester Institute of Technology's National Technical Institute for the Deaf and the Rochester School for the Deaf. Deaf Culture Day, again, is going to be April 28th. So if you're in the Rochester area, really cool thing to get behind. And we got that email in. I just wanted to make sure we touched on it because it's a really cool thing that has started to move across the minor league landscape. And with that, instead of diving full bore into the business of minor league baseball this week, we're going to go right into our farm system rankings, in which all 30 definitive and inarguable rankings have been released. They are 100% correct. Sam will entertain no disagreement. This is it. The San Diego Padres, not surprisingly, top ranked system in minor league baseball, followed by the Tampa Bay Rays, the Atlanta Braves, 4th ranked the Chicago White Sox, number 5 the Houston Astros, number 6 the Toronto Blue Jays, number 7 the Cincinnati Reds, number 8 the Los Angeles Dodgers, number 9 the Minnesota Twins, and number 10 the Pittsburgh Pirates. Those are the top 10 systems in baseball. All 30 are up on the site right now. Sam, what stands out most among what has made these top organizations rise to the top? Obviously, the Padres have so much talent. I think the depth of talent really seems like it separates itself for the Padres, the Rays, and the Braves. Maybe thinner beyond that, but what's kind of the theme among these teams that have made the climb to the top?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Tyler. In looking at tiers of this, I mean, we broke it down 30 to 21, then 20 to 11, then 10 to 1. But obviously within those tiers of 10, there's also mini tiers. And looking at it, I think the Padres and Rays, I would even say the Braves are kind of off to their own side a little bit, and that's for a good reason. They graduated Ronald Acuna Jr., who was the number 1 overall prospect last year at the time of his graduation. They've done well in terms of that. It isn't like the system has gotten worse for anything they've done wrong. It's just you graduate a prospect, you're going to move down like that. But the Padres and Rays are kind of in their own world, and depth is the right word there, because you just look at these lists and go to MLB Pipeline and find their top 30, and it's like it waves. It just comes over you and over you and over you. You have to scroll for a while, at least I do, until I find a prospect who is like, okay, I'm kind of iffy on that guy. San Diego Padres have 10 top 100 prospects right now. When you think about that, that's 1 in every 10 top 100 guys belongs to one system. That's nuts. We've said this before. It's amazing that one system can possess that much talent. But not just that, it's the diversity of talent. There's the number 2 overall prospect in Fernando Tatis Jr. He plays shortstop. Luis Urias is one of the best prospects in baseball. He plays shortstop and second base. Francisco Mejia is a catcher. They have so much pitching between Mackenzie Gore, Logan Allen, Chris Paddock, Luis Patino, Adrian Morejon, Ryan Weathers, Michel Baez. They've got other good catchers like Austin Allen. They've got Hudson Potts, who we mentioned earlier. He's the third baseman. Josh Naylor used to play first base. Now he plays left field. The bat is still really good. Buddy Reed is a special outfielder, at least when it comes to speed and defense, still trying to figure out the bat. But, he's, for a lot of organizations, he might be like your top outfield prospect. He's way down the list for the Padres. Edward Olivares is their number 23 prospect, and yet showed enough tools that they were worried about losing him in the Rule 5 draft because they thought somebody might pick him and see how good he is. And yet there are still 22 prospects better than him in that system right now. It's really, really crazy how good this Padres system is. A lot of it's coming to the majors this year. Tatis, we're going to see. Mejia and Urias, we've already seen. I think Chris Paddock, I mentioned him on the show last week. He's already been a really impressive spring performer, was our Milwaukee pitcher of the year last year. I'd expect him to be up early, or at least relatively early in the season this year, especially if San Diego is challenging Colorado and Los Angeles in the NL West. And kind of in that same token, I know I mentioned tiers, so the Rays are also in that group. The Rays don't have the top talent. They don't have somebody like Fernando Tatis Jr. I love Wander Franco. Trust me, I love Wander Franco. I think he's going to be the next big thing, and I say that in capital letters in case that doesn't come across. Wander Franco, a gifted shortstop, doesn't have the track record yet of a Fernando Tatis Jr. So they kind of lose that shining edge just a little bit, and that's what causes them to fall below the Padres. They also have, I think, 6 top 100 prospects. Compare that to 10, it's always going to be a drop below. But look at the guys who aren't top 100 prospects. Brandon Lau hit his way to the majors last year. Nate Lowe climbed 3 levels and might have been one of the best offensive performers in the minor leagues last year. Matthew Liberatore and Shane McClanahan, they added in the draft. They got a 2017 first rounder in Shane Baz. Brendan McKay, they officially said this week that he's going to be DH/pitcher, no more first base. But if he starts hitting now that he can focus just on hitting a little bit more, he could be a special player. They're getting Brent Honeywell back. This is just a really, really special system right now. I didn't even mention Ronaldo Hernandez, who is a catching prospect I really like. He hits well. He has a strong arm. We're kind of at a time right now when catching in the major leagues is down. But if he does everything he did last year at Class A Bowling Green at the upper levels, he's going to be a special major league catcher as well. Again, it just rolls over you, and it's at different positions. They're not loaded up at one specific spot. And one of the things the Rays obviously value is diversity in positioning. Brandon Lau, we mentioned, probably should be a second baseman in most organizations. They're trying to find him a spot in the outfield just because the Rays major league team is so loaded on the infield right now. That's going to come into play with a lot of these guys as they make their way to Tampa Bay. If these guys graduate, if Brent Honeywell is healthy, and somebody like Colin Pache is as good a reliever in the majors as he was in the minors, the Rays could be sneaky good in that AL East this year. Obviously, the Yankees and Red Sox are the 2 favorites there. But given the way this talent, again, is well-rounded and diversified and plentiful, the Rays' kind of heydays when they went to the World Series, when was that, 2008? It's not far away with the group they have right now. Just to kind of mention the number 3 team Tyler talking about, the Atlanta Braves. Again, graduating Ronald Acuna kind of hurts them. We called them our number 1 organization for pitching. And, the 4 guys who made the major leagues last year among their top 100 prospects: Mike Soroka, Kyle Wright, Touki Toussaint, Bryce Wilson. Not as diversified a group here. Christian Pache and Drew Waters are 2 of their best position player prospects. They both play center field. That's going to kind of come to a head in a couple of years. Good problem to have, but I would have liked to see a really good shortstop in the mix there. Austin Riley has a really good bat. He'll start out the year AAA, but he plays third base. He's going to be stuck behind Josh Donaldson, who they signed for the year. How is that going to work? Do they move him to the outfield? We'll have to see how that works. So the Braves don't necessarily have as deep a system as they once did. It is very pitching heavy right now. Position players lacking behind that, but still they're the number 3 system in baseball at a time when they're coming off winning a division title and going through still ongoing youth movement. So really exciting stuff for the Atlanta Braves, excuse me. It falls off pretty significantly there to the White Sox, who have a lot of top talent, but not much depth. Houston Astros, who kind of similarly, they have Forrest Whitley, they have Kyle Tucker. I really like their depth. They don't have the depth of top talent like the White Sox do. But again, you go deeper into that system, you'll find a lot of guys you like Framber Valdez, Miles Straw, Luis Santana. Toronto Blue Jays, how much do we pour into just one prospect with Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? This is something we talked about, Tyler, when we did the 21 and under talent. How much credit do we give them for just that guy? Enough to move them comfortably within the top 10. And then, Bo Bichette, Nate Pearson, Danny Jansen, Eric Pardinho, Kevin Smith, Kevin Biggio, all of these guys kind of solidify their spot further up into the number 6 spot. But, I'm not just going to give the Blue Jays a top 5 system just because they have Vlad Jr. As much as I would like to, and as much as I do think it is a wide gulf between him and Fernando Tatis Jr. at number 2 in terms of individual prospects, he can only get them so far, and we have them at number 6. So really, really fun to do this every year. Fun to have it now all on the site. You can peruse it. Again, we ranked overall talent, position player talent, pitching talent, 21 and under talent over the last 4 weeks. It's now all up on the site, all for your perusal. Revisit this again next year or as the season goes along. See how the systems have changed. See what graduations do. See what trades do. See what stocks going up and down do. It's really fun to revisit these a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road. So be sure to bookmark this and keep coming back, because there's a lot of words about a lot of these systems that have been up on the site over the last 4 weeks.
One thing that I do think is pretty amazing, the last 3 World Series champions, 2 of them are the bottom 2 farm systems in our rankings, the Chicago Cubs at 29, the Boston Red Sox at 30. The other one is the Houston Astros at 5, and that shows you just how much depth the Astros have built in that system. We talked about that for so long going into their World Series year, going into last season. That system not going away. Even when they graduate Forrest Whitley and Kyle Tucker, there is still a lot of talent in that organization. It is pretty impressive what the Padres or what the Astros have been able to build, and organizations like the Padres and the Braves and the Rays and all these teams are trying to emulate. And obviously it speaks to a much larger discussion that we're having all across the game of baseball, which is how do you rebuild a system and try to grow from within without it being entirely at the expense of trying to win at the major league level. The Astros have shown, or at least seem to be showing, that it's possible to do both, and you may have to go through a really rough lean period, as the Astros did for a little while. But right now, that's a team that's maybe the favorite in the American League and the American League West, and also still has one of the most loaded systems in baseball. And whether or not that's going to last for a long time, I'm not sure. But it is pretty incredible what the Astros have built, and not something that we should not something that we should miss out on highlighting again for another season in which they check in our top 5. So pretty amazing stuff. You can check out all the rankings right now on the site at MILB.com. We've got 3 different stories, 30 through 21, 20 through 11, and then the top 10 systems in all of baseball. And you can find where yours ranks and then yell at Sam on Twitter at SamDaxtra, MILB. And that'll do it for this week's segment away from Ben. But Ben will rejoin us next week when Sam is out of the office and nothing is routine and everything's weird for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah. So if you miss Ben is on his own vacation. So he'll also just sound relaxed, I think, going into next
probably.
Week. Yeah, so
probably. That's good. Yeah. Everybody's getting some decompression time.
There we go.
It's good. That's what we all need before opening night. Coming up this week's interview on the Show Before the Show podcast, we are going to head to the Miami Marlins system, one that is being reshaped like a lot of these organizations across baseball. And their first-round selection from last year, outfielder Connor Scott, joins the show from Florida next. Headed once more to the Grapefruit Leak on this week's episode of the Show Before the Show podcast. That's where we find the 6th-ranked prospect in the Miami Marlins organization, outfielder Connor Scott, 13th overall pick in last year's draft. Connor, welcome to the show, man. How's your first spring training been so far?
Oh, it's been going great. Oh, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. So tell us about the process of getting in for your first spring. You're drafted last year out of high school, Plant High School in Tampa, which is something we'll talk about in a little while. It's a baseball powerhouse. But you get into the Miami organization. Last year you get some time at a couple of different levels in rookie ball and in the Sally League. But to go through an offseason and to get into your first spring training, what have the first few weeks been like getting acclimated to the everyday process of what camp is going to be?
Well, I was fortunate enough to get invited to the captain's camp. It's a thing they've been doing the past 2 years. So we got here February 4th. It was just 12 guys. So we kind of got ourselves in baseball shape pretty early, and we did a lot of leadership stuff and team bonding stuff. So I think that was really great and really helped me a lot. So I'm hopefully I'll be ready to go.
What's the best thing that you did? It's kind of cool when you get to do those things that are baseball related but not baseball related. What's something that you did that was team bonding related that you enjoyed or that was kind of out of the ordinary?
So we've been doing community service stuff, events, and then also we did the fan fest. So I think those were two really fun things for us. For us minor league guys that were in captain's camp, got to go to Fan Fest and hang out in Miami for the day, and then we did Top Golf after that. So I think we had a really good time during that.
What's your Top Golf game like? How are you?
I'm pretty good, but I haven't picked up a golf club in a while. Baseball time.
Well, that's a good approach for this time of year. So
yeah.
The first few days, now that you're into camp, what are the biggest things to get your day-to-day activities? You wake up, you do your stuff in the morning, you'll start games soon. What have been your biggest points of emphasis early on in getting yourself started baseball activity-wise?
I think kind of coming into this and from what I experienced from talking to other players and people I know, and just being here at captain's camp, I kind of wanted to do like a, first one in, last one out type of deal. I think that's kind of driving me and kind of keeping me, doing the things I can do. And then I think the biggest part for me physically would be trying to get as many live at bats I can, so I can be ready for, when games start.
And when you did go through that captain's camp, I know that's something that a lot of the people in the Marlins now kind of carried over from the Yankees. I know Derek Jeter's obviously big time in that front office right now, but you guys get to talk to a lot of people who have been through it before, been through the major leagues, climbed through the minor leagues. What piece of advice or what was something that you heard that you think you're going to carry the most going into your first full season?
I think that the biggest part, so during captain's camp, we had an inspirational speaker every single day. Not inspirational, but, we had Don Mattingly talk to us, Trey Hillman, Curtis Granderson, Miguel Rojas. We had a whole list of names that would come talk to us. And, the biggest thing was they all preach the same thing is being a good person. If you help other people, you're helping yourself. And if you're in a slump, go help somebody else, and it's going to help you. Good karma and, being a good person really shows on and off the field.
And what kind of discussions did you have with the Marlins when they, extended that invite to you? When, this is your first off season, you've never really gone through this before. Normally during the winter, you're going to high school classes and stuff like that. Now all of a sudden you're getting invited to this type of camp, and then you're going to be going to spring training. They're really involving you in the process quickly and very early in your career. What did they say about setting the expectations for you this quickly? All
of us were super excited to be, invited, and we wanted to make the best out of it. When we were there, we were locked in the whole time. We did everything together. Eat together, all that stuff. So I think the biggest thing for us is, as younger players, the minor league guys that were there was not really learning how to be a leader. I think everyone that was there is a leader. I think that's why we were there. But I think just kind of rounding it off and, getting all the other smaller qualities put together and making us good good human beings, and we got to be leaders. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and when you get a group of guys like that together, obviously the goal is to get you guys to know each other and get used to being around each other and hopefully forming a core. But how much of the discussion that you guys are having is about, hey, we know what the organization is like right now. We know the state of the major league team. This is a rebuild that's going on. A lot of resources are being poured into minor league talent. If we stick together, we're the future of this franchise. How much were you guys talking about that at captain's camp, and how much does that kind of extend to even spring training when everybody is together and everybody knows they have a real shot at kind of leading this youth movement that's going on there down in Miami?
Yeah, everyone's got a great opportunity. We're in a really good organization to move up and hopefully get to the big leagues and play for a while. The biggest thing they talk about is just winning. Win championships, win ball games. That's all we care about. And I think once everyone gets on board with that, I think we'll become a championship team. I think it's going to happen very soon.
Connor, when you are a member of that organization right now, there's so much change over the last few years with the Marlins organization, and that emphasis, you hear those things talked about and you think, man, that sounds a lot like the New York Yankees. And obviously there is a point behind that with Derek Jeter and with some of the people have been brought into that organization. And obviously, you don't know any organization outside of Miami, and this is your first spring there, but the approach of that organization right now, what they're trying to emulate and what they're trying to be, how do you think that is communicated, and how that affects all of you guys as the young generation coming up in, like you said, kind of the professional thoughts and actions and deeds and what that means for you going forward? How does that approach from the organization translate to you guys as players?
I think it's just a call to action for all of us. Like you guys said, we all know that we have great opportunities to be able to move up in the organization fast. And the biggest thing is pretty much all they're preaching is be a good person, be respectful, be a professional baseball player on and off the field, and win ball games. Be a winner. You got to want to win. And once you put all those together, you're gonna have a winning ball club.
Well, let's talk about some on-field stuff. Last year, you get to play 50 combined games between the rookie-level GCL and Low A with the Greensboro Grasshoppers in the South Atlantic League. And to jump up at 18 years old and play in the Sally League for 23 games, there are not a whole lot of players who get to do that in their draft year. And I know there were, I think, only a couple last year. I know Nolan Gorman and the Cardinals organization made that jump as well to Low A. For you to get some experience, with a mid-season promotion and seeing two different levels and getting all those at-bats in, what do you feel like your first taste of pro ball was? What did you take away most from it going into the offseason?
Kind of just trust myself. I kind of once I got up to the Sally League, I kind of the game kind of got a lot more faster. So I wasn't really prepared for that. I think I grew tremendously this past year, and this off season was a great off season for me. And I think just trust myself and slow the game down. And that's the biggest thing for me. I think I matured a lot since then as a baseball player and as a human being, and I think that'll hopefully show this upcoming year.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. Again, last spring at this time, you weren't playing every day. You weren't doing the sort of things that you will be asked to do in 2019. So given all that experience you had last year in the GCL and Sally League, and then, the off season to prepare for it, how are you different as a baseball player now? What is something you find yourself doing either in the cage or in preparation or, outfield work? How are you different now as a baseball player than you were 12 months ago?
I think the biggest thing would be, it's also one of the mottos with the Marlins. It's work smarter, not harder. I think it's quality over quantity is what they always say, and I think last year I was kind of just, if I had a bad game, I'd go in there and take 300 swings. It's just not trusting yourself, and when you start trusting yourself, you got better quality of what you're doing. and just take care of your body is what that comes into. And, that's how you're going to stay healthy and, be able to play for a long time.
And kind of expanding on that, when you say quantity over quality, instead of just taking 300 hacks in the cage, what are you working on specifically now to kind of develop your hit tool? Because, scouting reports we read about you is that you're a good fielder, you got a good arm, you're especially good running, and I want to touch on that in a second. But what have you identified that you can work on in terms of your hitting style to become a good minor league and eventually major league hitter?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's approach. Just talking with all the guys. I mean, the Marlins hired over 300 plus years of experience in baseball this past off season, and just picking their brain and asking questions. I think just approach wise and your baseball IQ has been tremendously higher than what it was last year. So I think just my approach has gotten a lot better. Just how I go into things now.
All right, so I teased it out a little bit there in the last question, but talking about your running style, a couple of things I've read about you. I think Baseball America said you had like a unique gait. MLB Pipeline says you have a funky running style. Everybody says you're fast. So how do these things tie into each other? Is that something you've ever heard about in terms of your running? How would you kind of describe your running style?
It was funky. I can agree with that. it was pretty bad. But we do speed training every day at the complex before we get on the field and stuff. And it's gotten tremendously better and also getting me a lot faster. So we've been working on it.
Well, kind of in your own words, what made it funky? I mean, what had people identified that, at least to you, that looked funky about it?
Have you ever seen me run?
I have. I've seen the YouTube clip, and I don't want to describe it without slandering you in some way. But it.
I don't know how to describe it. I mean, my arms would go side to side, and my hand would be open, and there was a bunch of stuff. I was a heel runner, but in high school, you just kind of hit it and you run, Right. So I didn't really know anything about it till I got here, and. So we're changing it up and we're making improvements.
Connor, when you go through, we hear so often about a player who will have his swing changed by an evaluation, the way his mechanics work and what teams want to do with your plant foot or the way your hips move or where your hands are positioned or whatever it is. How does that factor in when a team is trying to change the way you run? Like, what was the process? Like, how did they, first of all, was it insulting? Like, you're fast. People come to you and they're like, you run weird. Like, if I was just burning everybody foot race wise, I don't think I'd really care that much. What was that discussion like?
I was totally on board with them when they told me. I mean, they started off by saying you could be, a lot faster than you already are. So, obviously I was on board with that. So, we started doing the drills and everything started feeling better. I mean, I had the hamstring issue at the end of my high school career, and it was because of my running form. So, I was totally on board, and we started doing the stuff, and it's hopefully more prone to injuries because when you run on your heels, it's kind of like a gas and a brake. When you run on your heels, once you hit the heel, it's a brake, and then you hit the gas pedal again and brake and gas pedal, and it's just really bad for your hamstring. So we're kind of that was one of the main points we changed.
When you say that you could get faster, and that's what the organization brings to you, your best graded tool from MLB Pipeline right now is already your run tool, which is a 65 on the 20 to 80 scale. Where do you feel your speed shows itself best? Are you a guy who last year you go out and you steal 9 bases? Are you somebody who's good on the base pass? Do you feel like you cover ground best with your speed? How do you feel like it best manifests itself?
I mean, I think all of them. I think being in center field is a big part of it. You got the biggest part of the field you got to cover. I really like running around in the outfield during BP and all that. My first step's gotten tremendously better. Ready position and all that ties in there. So I think the biggest part would be tracking down balls and would probably say track and down ball.
Well, another thing that I know the Marlins are really excited about with you is the ability to develop some of your power. As a big-bodied guy, you're listed at 6'4", 180, but of course 19, you'll grow into that a little bit more and put in some power, and that's always what they say, the last thing that comes along with prospects. But you go out and you hit a homer in your Class A debut with Greensboro last year. To already, I would imagine, have seen some gains in that from when you got started in the system to this spring. How do you feel like your swing has evolved in being able to maybe tap into some of that pop more as you start growing up as a ball player?
Yeah, I think I don't think we're really worried about it. I think I'm going to grow into my body, get stronger and all that. Stay in my legs a little more and staying behind the ball is something we've been working on a little bit, and so hopefully all that'll tie in and everything will click good.
All right, Connor. Well, we're going to end on a couple of fun ones here. One, I mentioned before, watching some of the YouTube clips of you from the GCL. One thing that stood out to me was your decision to go with no gloves. Take us through that. Why no batting gloves, and how do you feel like, or just take us through that decision, why you decided to do that? What kind of effect do you think it has on you?
I've always just not worn batting gloves ever since I can remember. I'll wear them if it's, super cold, or it's super, super hot and I'm super sweaty. My hands are all slippery. But, almost every time I don't wear batting gloves. It's just something I've always done, and I kind of take pride in it because not a lot of people do it anymore. But, I'm kind of an old school guy. So I think that would be one of the main parts of it.
Yeah, I feel like people always gravitate towards people who don't wear batting gloves either, just because the idea for some reason it feels superhuman to those of us who needed batting gloves for all of our lives. What the other one I wanted to touch on, and then Tyler's got one more, was Tyler mentioned before you come from Plant High School in Tampa, former home of Wade Boggs, of the Tucker brothers, Kyle Tucker, Preston Tucker, I think also went there. What is it about that school that just makes it a baseball factory? Because we talk to college guys, and it's one thing for like Vanderbilt to produce position players, or these other schools. It's one thing. It's a university. For it to be a single high school to produce this many quality baseball players, what is it about that program and that school and that area that just does so well?
Yeah, I give a lot of my credit to the high school coach there, and I'm sure the other guys would too. Coach Dennis Braun, he's been around there for, I think, around 15 years. And the guy's coached all over the world. That guy will push you to no limits. He's made me the ball player I am today. He'll never, treat you differently no matter who you are. He always pushes you. He's just all around just one of the best high school coaches, I think around ever.
All right, Connor, last thing for you. You get drafted last year. You go in the first round. You get the hat and the jersey, and you're part of the Marlins family. I would imagine your family went out, and probably not that difficult in Florida, bought a whole ton of Marlins merchandise. And you get into the offseason, and they switch up everything on you. They got a new logo. They got new uniforms and everything.
Yeah.
So I have to get your take then on the new logo set and rocking the new uniforms and everything now in spring training. How's it feel? And now you've got all these collector's items of the last set.
Yeah, I love it. I haven't heard one bad thing about the new logo. The only bad part is I got to get my parents and my sisters all new Marlins gear. It's kind of stink. I'm going to have to bug the equipment manager on that one. But I like it a lot. I think the colors are sweet. I think a lot of people can agree we needed a change. So, I think everyone's on board. What do you guys think?
I like it. It started to grow on me, which is how I felt about the last one, too. I didn't like it when it first came out, and then after a couple months, I was like, all right, yeah, I think it works. But I've never been to Miami, and from what I've heard, it fits Miami very well. That's what I heard about the last one. Is what I've heard about this one. So that seems to be the thing everybody loves most.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, good to know. Connor Scott, last year's first-round selection of the Miami Marlins, who will be headed to full season ball for his first full season campaign in 2019. Connor, we can't thank you enough for the time, man. Enjoy the stretch through spring training and getting started in this 2019 season. Best of luck.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Well, enjoy Mexico, man.
Yeah, no, I will try. I will try.
Rough.
I know. It rare is the time when I go to Florida already red, but that's probably going to be the case this weekend.
You just get the sunburn out of the way.
Yeah,
that's good.
I'm gonna show up to Braves camp on Monday, and I'll just be like, "Oh, how are you guys doing? Great. It looks like you've been here for a while." I have not.
Some people get a base tan. Sam just gets a base burn. That's good as an Irishman on this podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a positive thing. I'm a decent amount of Irish as well, but I thankfully got the Italian side of the family's skin for the most part. Like, I'm not like, I don't have olive skin, but I don't burn super easily, which is nice. Because yeah, I know the Irish side of the family, and Sam being the uber Irish one of the podcast. Yeah, it's enjoy that. The problem with Florida is I feel like in humidity you don't feel like you're getting burned quite as much as you do in Arizona. In Arizona, you're just sitting in a toaster. But in Florida, you're like, it's like you've been thrown into lava. The humidity, for some reason, I never feel like, oh, I'm getting sunburned here. And then if I do, it's terrible. It's misleading.
No, I kind of get what you're saying, but I'm also very hyper aware of when I've been in the sun for too long. Like there are times when I've been to spring training where I try to hide behind just like a pole that's on a link fence. Just like,
I do that too.
Yeah,
I absolutely do that.
I'm not as skinny as I once was, so I can't fit fully within the shadow of the
into
pole.
A pole shadow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean though. Thankfully there are a decent amount of places now that have like those little sunshades on the bleachers on the backfields, but even those don't do enough. You're still going to end up getting scorched.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
training week.
I already bought sunscreen.
So good luck.
Yeah, I already brought travel sunscreen. I'm probably going to need 3 more bottles of those before I come back, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, big thanks to Connor Scott for joining us this week. And again, you can find us on Twitter. Sam is at Sam Dykstra, MILB. I am at Tyler Mon. Connor, by the way, is at Connor Scott 24. And until Florida and Arizona, Sam will be down to the Grapefruit League next week. And enjoy the rest of the week away from work. And we'll talk to you down there, man.
Yeah. I will try to bring the waves with me on the podcast, as I always do.
Sounds great. And to all of you, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you next week.